it's having that mentality is kind of like where I feel like I'm a bit different to everybody else in the British scene.
Uh-huh.
Even like when the Ring of Honor guys came over last week for the Preston shows, it's kind of like they were doing like, I'll do this move, and I was like, okay, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'll just give you a back rake.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
You know, it's like you do your offense, and I just, I do mine.
You'll be there for it. Yeah, which is basically what it is. Yeah, when I was a heel, I was a prick 24 hours a day. Some would say even when I've stopped wrestling 7 years later. But but I mean, even when I'd finished, one thing I hate is when you're the biggest heel on the show, and then the show finishes, and you'll be walking out, and people will come up to you and go, "Can you sign this?" "Yeah, of course I can, mate. No problem. I hope you enjoyed the show." Blah blah blah. I used to tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
I was a prick. And I wanted them to truly believe that I was an utter prick.
Yeah.
And I wanted them, when they'd finished the show, to go, "God, I just asked Steve Knight for an autograph. He told me to fuck off. What a wanker."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I used to go for. Maybe it was a bit harsh sometimes, but I think that's the old school in me. Who did you wrestle around this time when you first started that really helped you and taught you? And before you tell me that, was you a fan of British wrestling when you started training, or was you just American?
It was American, because I was a huge ECW fan. But when I watch it back now, I think, fucking hell, it doesn't make sense at all. But then that's when Eddie Guerrero got released, and then he had his match with Doug.
Yep.
I think it was, and then it was on the Bravo. That's
the Revival,
when, yeah, that was when I first knew about British wrestling, which was that FWA one, and then I think it was Johnny and Jody in the ladder match.
Yeah,
that was on the same, and then obviously the internet was kind of still new then, so it was kind of like finding things, and then we're going on the website, and then follows it that way. So I knew it from then, but I think who I learnt from was kind of like, I was still, like I said, I was a trainee for about 5-6 years until I kind of got asked to do like GPW, FWA, and then it was like when I think it was when I actually wrestled Spud and Jack Storm at the FWA in Morecambe. That was when I was kind of like, oh, I'm so out of my depth being in this match with these two, because they've made these huge names for themselves recently, and it's kind of like, and I'm here, and they were just like, no, because they were cool, because they were just like, no, we will put you on the same level as us, don't worry. And from then on, it was kind of like, oh shit, that's like so nice, and thankfully I never fucked up. I never dropped the ball, and every opportunity they kind of gave to me, like GPW as well. I think that was when Alex kind of left GPW. It was like when I came in.
Yeah.
And then I wrestled Joey Hayes on the first night as well. And obviously my best friend now, so working with him, as soon as I met him, because he's been to Germany and everything like that, that was an eye-opener as well. So
I did one show for GPW, and what was the girl called? Sarah, her real name was.
Minx.
Minx. And I did a little spot with her where I was supposed to look like a total bastard and beat up a woman, obviously. And I said, I won't give you a slab or a suplex or anything. I said, because that's like, everyone knows that people fall, and you know what I mean? That everyone thinks that's part of wrestling. I said, what I'll do is, I'll just kick you in the head. So she said, okay then. Unfortunately, I did fucking kick her in the head really hard, and nearly took her head off, so I never got booked there again.
Oh, God.
It was a total accident. She was fine with it, absolutely fine with it. I said, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. I did feel a bit bad about kicking a girl who was about 17 in the side of the head really hard, but, what could you do if they move?
Yeah. Who was it? Who did you work?
Alex.
Yeah, because I think when I first came in, he was having that massive fallout with Lee Butler. I don't know the full story.
I think Alex went in and beat him up and tried biting his ears off and things or something.
Really?
Yeah, that's...
Oh, God.
Yeah, he went in and slapped him a little bit and then bit his ear, from what I can gather. Yeah, great fun.
Because as soon as because I heard of that happen, and then Johnny Brannigan was like in charge then, sort of thing. So I didn't see any of that. So
Lee Butler used to tell me all kinds of things. He was a policeman, he was this, he was that, and then it turned out he was none of those things. I think he was worked in a factory or something. But yeah, he had problems with the truth, I believe. Now, one of the guys that you did wrestle when you were doing the FWA shows, I moved to Spain at the time. But a guy that I used to wrestle a lot, and I know you got to wrestle him, was Johnny Angel. Do you remember that match?
Yeah. That was in Blackpool, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the very first time he was just like, this is the finish. Mm-hmm. And then that was it. We'd go out, and I was like, what? Because obviously, I was step by step, coloring, go with numbers and, 1 to 10. And so that was a very big eye opener, because even though I kind of messed up some stuff, that was when I started to realize that from that generation called different moves than what we called them.
Yep.
So when he called double leg, I was like, I'm trying to take his legs. But what he meant was the sunset flip.
Yep.
So it's kind of the crossover of it. So it's kind of, now I've got, obviously I remember both. So I remember, what was the finish? I think I remember a springboard crossbody on, and he caught me and Papa just drilled me to the mat. I was like, yep, that's the finish.
There we go. That'll be the end. God, when I started, he's probably been doing it, but 10 years longer than I have. But God, he used to give me some grief when I started. But he was. I mean, when he came back, he was, he was a lot bigger and a lot slower and things. Still, bloody hell, a great hand in the ring. But when he was younger, good God, he could work. He was absolutely fantastic.
It's a shame because none of their kind of stuff's online or anything, or is it?
There's nothing online. I mean, I've got a few bits because he was one of the guys that I used to watch a lot and steal things from and things. So I've got a couple of tapes of him with the Bulldog and things, but because he did a lot of when the Bulldog came over in '94, it was him and Drew McDonald against the Bulldog. And an awesome wrestler called Tony Stewart. He's a guy. Yeah, you know him, yeah?
Yes.
He's a guy. So have you gone back, now you've got involved with British wrestling, have you gone back and watched British wrestling?
I have, seen as how Marty's kind of opened his school. Yep. I've kind of seen a lot of his old tapes and stuff like that. And who was the Saint as well? Johnny Saint, yeah. Just some of the stuff when you watch it, you think, okay, now that's but kind of how can you kind of use what they did into this day and age? It's kind of people are using a lot of their stuff now.
Absolutely.
So it's nice because I bet it's nice for them that their work is still relevant sort of thing now.
It's amazing, really. I mean, Johnny Saint came back anyway. And his style was always being copied. I mean, if you look at, is it Zack Sabre? He's like a 20-odd-year-old version of Johnny Saint. That's basically what he does. But Marty kind of went away, and he's been on the podcast as well. If anyone wants to listen to Marty Jones, I did an awesome podcast with him, which you can download. But Marty kind of went away, ran a pub, and disappeared a little bit. And then he kind of got on Facebook. He came on the podcast, and he's well back into it now again. He's got his wrestling school, and I can't, tell anybody they must go down and learn that style because it's disappearing. As these guys get older, that style is disappearing. Yeah, and there's so many nice little things that you could take and add into modern things now. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, because it's when he runs his schools and stuff, it's the same nights that I teach at Preston, and obviously with kids as well, I can't kind of just because I have them nighttime.
Yeah.
So when he does the sessions and stuff, and then I see them being posted on Facebook, and it's I really just want to go down because it may be kind of an ego thing, kind of for someone of his stature just to be turned around and just go, "You're a good worker."
Yeah.
Would make me feel so good. But at the flip side of it, if he turned around and was double thumbs under the armpit, fucking rotten, I'd be devastated. But it's but he came to watch me and Ricky at GPW, and he sat and watched it and then gave us feedback and stuff like that. So that was nice because nowadays people won't give me feedback.
Yeah.
Which annoys me. Because it was oh no, you're good, and it's but you're seeing it from a spectator's point of view, not a worker's. So
yeah,
it's nice for somebody to give feedback, and like you did when we did Cleethorpes, you gave a bit of feedback back, and it was just like, it was nice to kind of feel that it's positive criticism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way British wrestling should have gone. I think it's gone too far towards an American independent style.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back and watch the stuff on YouTube with Marty Jones and Rocco and Dynamite and, you know, all these guys, if that was just modernised slightly with a bit more razzmatazz and the guys being in shape like they are now and things, I think British wrestling has just lost its identity. As good as those PCW shows are, which I watch, it's basically American indie style, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because it's kind of like that's their product.
Yeah.
You know, when you go and watch a band, it's kind of like that's the kind of music they have. So obviously, when people go to watch it, they know what to expect.
Yep.
But like you said before, with Zack Sabre and people like Zack, Jack Gallagher, Gibson, Juice, they all have like British style offense.
Yeah.
And I always think now with them four, they stand out so much because it's different. It's kind of like, you know, people are doing all the transitions and the kicks and all that. I mean, I fall into that category because that is what I am branded as.
Yep.
But obviously I've got the twist of it with the heel gimmick. But with those four, you could put them on any show in the world and they'll stand out because that's how good they are, because they've adapted the old style British wrestling into a modern day wrestling, so people will appreciate it and also stand up and be like, fucking hell, these are really good. So it's kind of like they do all the text and stuff like that, but for me, they do it as a reason, not just a transition. Because people kind of be like, oh, I can wrestle, and it's like, but why do you put somebody in a headlock?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you put them in a hammerlock? It's kind of like you're just doing it for fancy, but not. There's a reason. Obviously, there's a reason to put people in holds, but then you kind of like if you're putting somebody in a hammerlock, why would you never go back to it?
Yeah.
If you're going to try and like today, like in jiu-jitsu, when you put the Kimura on, if you're trying to pop someone's shoulder or do the wrists, you're doing it once, and you never go back to it. It's kind of like, well, you've lost the meaning of doing that move.
Yep.
Which I think
you're trying to get a submission. That's the bottom line is, you know. But people, like you say, they use it. They'll put them in a hammerlock and they'll immediately spin around into a headlock. Then they'll take their arm and they'll go around the back and all of it is just to look fancy. It's not been done for any reason at all.
No, and but like with them four, like I said, it's kind of like they all start a submission and they'll finish with one.
Yep.
You know, they'll always go for that. It's like I always teach people now. It's like at the start of you have like certain points of a match, and it's like not like a point. It's kind of like you have to tick them off. You know, like if Joe Bloggs came off the street to watch, it's kind of like, Joe Bloggs, fucking brilliant. He's everywhere, him. It's like when you play football, that isn't it? 3-0 game.
Yeah.
So like when you establish yourself, you know, as soon as you come through the curtain, you're a good guy, bad guy. You know, and then obviously you have to have a full stop. You have to show how you actually win a match through a submission or a pin, and then I always try and think to myself, you always have to try to get your finisher over. Go for that. So it's kind of like, you know, you can do that you can milk that for 5 minutes by telling a story, and you know, and obviously with the British wrestling, you do that with the submissions.
Well, a prime example of that is Doug Williams. I know, obviously, he was, when I first met Doug and I was working with Doug, he was doing complete American-style wrestling. And then as soon as he went to doing the British style, which, you know, he is now completely synonymous with, there he goes. You know, he's off to Ring of Honor and Japan and everything else. I think it's important to keep the Britishness alive, without a doubt. I think there's 1,000 Americans doing American stuff, and you know there's not that many British guys doing British stuff. So I think you know with your style, what you do is great. I mean, I watched you and everything looks great. If you threw a few British moves in there as well, you know, just simple little reverse. When I went to America, the stupidest little reversals and things made people go, wow.
Yeah.
And it was so easy. It was like, wow, I don't need to do any of this other stuff because they love the fact that I've took his arm and took him down.
Yeah.
It was just so easy. Like Doug, Doug looks more awesome now than he did ever. He's like 44.
He's in phenomenal shape as well. He was at the last the Preston Ring of